Happy noon, everybody, and thanks for coming to the Aquinas Lecture Series. Without any further ado, I'm just going to introduce Professor Shelli Rottschafer and students Zach Stepanovich, Bridget, Salisz, and Jessica Bredeweg with their presentation, Pura Vida, AQ in Costa Rica. Help me welcome them.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad you're here. I would just like to introduce my three panelists. They are speaking about Pura Vida, AQ in Costa Rica. Pura Vida is an expression that Costa Ricans often use to say, let's embrace life. And that is definitely a part of their culture. The past few years, I've been blessed with being the chaperone to the Costa Rican program. It is in the spring semester, and if you would like to apply, not for this spring, but the following, the application deadline is January 22. And typically there are between 8 and 20 Aquinas students that travel to Santa Ana, Costa Rica, which is one of the suburbs of the capital. And you have your own language school there. Don Jorge y Doña Acevedo are the program directors. And you live in host families for the whole semester. And you have a variety of different classes that you can take. Grammar, composition, conversation, culture, history, tropicology, ecology, and pretty much every weekend you are traveling to a different corner of the country. So it's a very, very unique program. And without further ado, I would like Zach to come up and explain about his experience this past spring.
Hello, everybody. My name is Zach Stepanovich. I'm a Spanish major. I will be graduating either in the fall of 15 or spring 16. And I'm studying Spanish because, probably a big thing for me is my family originally is from Spain, so there's kind of that family heritage, and wanting to be able to communicate with some members of my family would be pretty cool too. But I also I've really have loved the kind of international experience that studying Spanish has brought. So, I think further, Pura Vida, my experience embracing life in Costa Rica. Pura Vida is something a native Costa Rican, or Tico, says on a daily basis. It is an exclamation. It is a positive phrase that encourages others to embrace life. Pura Vida is my response to my sophomore spring semester abroad in Santa Ana, Costa Rica. The leaders of this adventurous program are Don Jorge Acevedo and his wife, Doña Ana Porras de Acevedo. And plainly put, this trip was a little slice of heaven. Santa Ana is located at the base of a spectacular green mountain. From learning hands-on about the wildflowers to visiting the great and vast Pacific Ocean, the presence of nature is omnipotent here in Costa Rica. After hearing for the first time the great call of a pair of macaws and watching a white-headed capuchin monkey steal bananas, I realized that this journey was not just about learning about another environment or culture, but truly living in it. This is when I began to understand the concept of Pura Vida. I enjoyed meeting new people as well. My Spanish conversation class was taught by the hilariously brilliant Dr. Gabriel Baltodano, who also dabbles, to say the least, in surfing, taekwondo, triathlons, and on top of that, a knowledge of a whole motley of different languages. Wednesday and Thursday nights were spent with the charming Miss Ona Jimenez, learning a variety of Latin American dances, including salsa, merengue, and even the occasional belly dancing. At home, my host family welcomed me generously, and I delighted myself in trying delicious dishes and even ventured with them through coffee plantations to secret waterfalls hidden in the mountains. With just the passing of the few first weeks in Costa Rica, I felt as if my life had changed forever, and I truly had experienced wonders I had never dreamt of before. It wasn't until after my eyes had more time to adjust to the blinding rays of the new tropical sun that I began to see the true value of my time spent in Costa Rica. While the numerous adventures we had and the crazy experiences that seem to lurk around every corner may always be the first things to come to mind when I talk about Costa Rica, many of the skills I learned and honed there are just as important. One being my improvement of understanding Spanish. I chose the word understanding because I think this entails much more than simply saying speaking Spanish or learning a new language. By using the word understanding, I mean to address all the aspects there are to the language, from reading and writing about the famous Hispanic authors like Gabriel Garcia Marquez in class, and to picking up on local terms, including phrases like Pura Vida, and even playing soccer with new friends in the town plaza. This is how all-inclusive the language program and experience was in Costa Rica. Those who have studied abroad will tell you that this is where the difference is made when learning a new language, compared to learning a language at home or in a normal classroom. You can only truly experience a new language around the dinner table when you're sharing patacones, which are like fried plantains, while discussing the outcome of the local football game. You can only truly learn a new language when you are haggling for a price of mangoes or avocados in the weekly farmer's market. And you can only truly understand a new language when you are chatting with your newly made friends while searching the skies for shooting stars atop a mountain lookout. These experiences can never be captured in the classroom, and that is what makes the language program in Costa Rica different, fun, and most importantly, effective. I could never imagine being a Spanish major now without having taken the jump into the unknown and studying abroad in Costa Rica. I truly have found my definition of Pura Vida. Thank you. And then Bridget will be presenting next.
Hi, my name is Bridget Salisz. I'm studying here at Aquinas K through 12 Spanish education, as well as K through 8 general education with Spanish, obviously. I'm graduating this May with my bachelor's degree in Spanish, and then I am continuing to complete my education degree. I'm studying Spanish because of the importance of the Spanish language to the culture of a lot of Spanish people. I am hoping to teach either in an elementary setting, in an immersion classroom, or in a high school setting, and I wanted to be able to bring culture, a cultural understanding to the classroom. Each culture in the world has its, one moment please. All right, each culture in the world has its own importance, and we grow up day to day with different cultures around us. From the time we're children, we are aware of different cultures in the lunchroom at school, to carpools and the music that we hear on different parents' radios. I'm studying Spanish as well as education here at Aquinas, like I've said, to hope to someday be a teacher in either an immersion setting or in a high school setting. Before I started exploring the world, although I was surrounded by many different cultures, none of them stood out to me specifically. I knew when I decided to study education that I would need to have a better understanding of the households from which children would come to me. When I decided to pair education with Spanish, I knew that I needed a better understanding of a typical Latin American household. Luckily, Aquinas College offers this program to Costa Rica, and in January of 2013, I traveled with myself and 9 other Aquinas students to a country the size of West Virginia, but that holds about 5% of the biodiversity in the world, as well as an abundance of cultural experiences in Spanish dialects. I was lucky enough to travel almost every weekend to different parts of the country where, interestingly enough, I came across many different cultures in almost every place that I traveled. While Costa Rica as a whole has so much cultural diversity, I found that my experience with the indigenous people of Costa Rica influenced my ability to better understand the origins of many Latin American cultures. The first indigenous group that I visited were the Chorotegas. We specifically visited the tribe of the Guaytil. In the Guaytil community, the people have continued the age-old process of making ceramics the way their ancestors did. We learned all about the methods they used, as well as why the tradition is so important for them to continue. They feel it is a way to show appreciation and love to their ancestors. And here I have a few more pictures of the ceramics. We also got to experience the process of them making the ceramics. The second group that we were lucky enough to visit were the Malekus. The Malekus gave me an understanding of the community aspect in many Latin American cultures. The living arrangements for the Malekus are called a palenque system, which is where the people all live together under one roof, sharing their resources, which helped me more to understand the behaviors and tranquility of compassion between Latin American neighbors. The most profound experience that I had with the indigenous while I was in Costa Rica was when we as a group got to visit the Guaymi community in the Talamanca mountain range. When there, we played soccer with the young men of the community and then had a party with them, and we drank their specific fermented corn drink called chicha, sang songs with them, and I had the most fun dancing along with them to their ancient tribal dances. Zach danced the most, though. We learned about their farm life, family life, and religious and political views. We spoke with some of the young women and came to understand that having children and being married was typical of women about 13 to 17 years of age. It was an eye-opening experience, complete with the opportunity to share gifts of pencils and notebooks with clothes and with them and seeing the smiles on their faces. There's Zach. You can see him in that picture. These three groups of indigenous are only a small portion of the culture-rich Costa Rica, but they gave me a better understanding for life. I can now bring that understanding into a Spanish classroom someday and teach the children about pieces of the culture that make up the language they are learning. It will help them see the bigger connection and hopefully help them see the real-life application and importance of becoming bilingual. This trip gave me a new understanding that I, someday in the future, can share with the next generation that I will be lucky enough to influence. Thank you. And Jessica will be presenting next.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jessica Bredeweg. I am a super senior here at Aquinas. I will hopefully graduate this spring. That's the plan, but we'll see how everything goes this semester. My majors are Spanish as well as sustainable business, and that is one of the reasons why I really chose this program, is it had the nature aspect, obviously, along with the Spanish. And the reason I'm studying Spanish is, honestly, when I came to Aquinas, I had already taken 4 years, so I thought, okay, well, I might as well continue. And then once I got here is when I think I really started to fall in love with the language, and then when I went to Costa Rica is when I knew 100% this is definitely what I'm supposed to be doing. I felt completely at home. The culture there is one of the most amazing cultures I've ever experienced. My passion for nature inspired me to pursue my degree in sustainable business at Aquinas alongside with the second degree in Spanish, as I mentioned. Once I heard about the opportunity to study abroad, and after reading the description of the study abroad program in Costa Rica, I knew right away that that is where I was going to go. It combined my 2 degrees perfectly. The Aquinas College Costa Rica program includes courses in tropical ecology and reforestation as service learning every weekend. We took excursions throughout the country, learning about the different kinds of indigenous plants and animals. Our professors stressed the importance and the beauty of nature by engaging us in countless outdoor activities. These activities included nature walks through national parks, climbing mountains and volcanoes, zip lining hundreds of feet above rainforests, snorkeling in both the Caribbean Sea and the Pacific Ocean, and taste testing numerous Costa Rican delicacies in class. We were able to experience nature's beauty firsthand. Our tropical, excuse me, our tropical ecology class and reforestation courses took our learning to the next level. In tropical ecology, we spent most of our time in the classroom studying Costa Rica's natural history, and the geography of the country. We learned how it was formed volcanically, and its name itself actually describes how rich it is in diversity. We learned about all of the flora and fauna that inhabit the land. This class helped me realize the importance of all the different microclimates and the individual ecosystems within Costa Rica. I learned how they functioned not only separately, but how they functioned together. Additionally, every Friday, my classmates and I went up the mountainside to our reforestation project. Here, we replanted trees, helping come to life the local forest that had been destroyed. We were able to get to know nature on a very personal level. We raked leaves and cleaned areas where we were going to plant new trees. To prepare the land, we mixed cow and horse manure with our hands. We weren't allowed to use gloves. With dry dirt to create a very nutrient soil. And then here in this picture, we covered it with tarps and just kind of let it dry over a week. After we put the new soil into hundreds of individual bags, we scavenged through the forest for new tree saplings. We placed each baby tree in its own individual bag and secured its place with the dirt around it. And the new trees will remain there in that same place as they continue to grow until next spring when the new group comes, and then those trees that have been growing will be taken to different places throughout the country to try to reforest all the forests that have been lost. Working in the dirt with my own hands and on my knees, even though sometimes we were complaining and just wanted nothing to do with obviously the horse manure and cow manure, it showed me that hard work definitely pays off and it is required to make a difference. In retrospect, one thing that has specifically stuck with me is the importance of allowing nature to be the teacher. I realized that I learn more by observing the beautiful, completely natural process that has worked for thousands of years. Judging from my personal experience in Costa Rica, this is one thing that the Ticos truly understand. Their passion and love for nature is honestly inspiring. They don't see nature as only a means to an end. It's not something to take advantage of, but they realize the true value that it holds for present and future generations. This attitude perfectly reflects their current beliefs and future goals. Costa Rica has confirmed my passion for nature, and my experience there has become my motivation to continue with sustainable business. I have learned that passion and hard work know no language, and that is why I think Costa Rica is one of the most beautiful places in the world. So a little bit more about the reforestation. This is when, after the mud was dried, we went in there with rakes and we had to break it up and make sure the clumps were out. And then so we sat there for a couple hours at a time and just took the dirt and put it in bags. And we just had a nice little system going on. We'd pass the bags down, put the dirt in them, set them off to the side. And then this is when we went out into the forest and we just found little tree saplings, new ones that had just grown, and so we took them all back. And then we put them into these bags. And we had, I think, about 3 or 4 rows just like this of all these bags. And like I said, those will stay there and grow. And then Don Jorge, he'll take them and they'll be distributed throughout mountainsides in Costa Rica.
And right now we're going to have a Q&A session. So everyone's going to come up, including Emily, one of the student workers for the Office of International Programs. At the end of our Q&A session, if you have any questions specifically for her, she also has a few applications for this next process of applying to Costa Rica. So without further ado, please, if you have a question, raise your hand, and Mark is going to come by with a microphone so that we can definitely record your question so that everyone can hear. Anyone have specific questions?
I had a question about the freedom that you have there. If you wanted to go take a run, let's say, around the city or whatever, what would you say about that?
Well, I guess I can speak from experience in that. Well, I'm on the cross country and track team here at Aquinas, and I'm pretty sure I ran, if not the same, maybe even more when I was down there, because there's a lot of free time, and one of the best ways to explore the town and the mountainside was to put in my shoes and head out the door. It was very, very relaxed atmosphere. Definitely plenty of free time to go run, train, play soccer in the local plaza if you need to. So.
How about each of you explain your safety level?
Okay. As a woman, I was a little nervous about going to Costa Rica, but the town itself is a very, very secure area. Santa Ana is outside of San Jose. San Jose is a little bit of a different story. You definitely want to make sure that you're with people if you end up in San Jose, but Santa Ana, you always feel very secure. Obviously, you have to do things that are smart, like walk with someone at night. But other than that, I never felt in danger. And the other thing, too, like Zach was saying, as far as freedom goes, the city is a great area to explore. We did play soccer multiple times with the locals in the plaza. I went to church every Sunday, which was really cool to experience, too. And Zach touched on it a little bit. There's a farmer's market every week, too. That's awesome.
How did you choose Costa Rica over Spain?
Well, like I mentioned, because I am also a sustainable business major, I've always had this affinity for nature. I love being outside, and once I kind of read over what Costa Rica was all about, how you're going to be traveling and you're going to be outside and you're going to be climbing mountains, that's kind of what decided it for me. And then going there, it was exactly what it said it was going to be and more. You're literally outside all the time. You are within reach of monkeys and little mapaches, which are like, I think there's a picture of one. They're kind of like little raccoon-looking things. And you get to hold birds and see sloths. It's an amazing experience. You're always outside. You're always in nature, seeing it, touching it, really experiencing it for yourself.
One of the reasons why I chose Costa Rica as well, as I mentioned it a little bit in my paper, it was kind of a jump into the unknown. As for choosing it over Spain, I think Spain is it's a much more Western culture, just like the U.S. And while of course it's going to be very distinct from U.S. culture, going to Costa Rica was something completely different than anything I'd ever experienced in my life. And not to say that Costa Rica is a third world country, but it's a different country. It's a lot different than life here is in the U.S. And that was a big reason to go there. Was kind of the mystery of doing something new, and it was an incredible experience. Definitely worth going there. Yeah.
One of the things, just really quickly, that helped me distinguish between the two or decide between the two was that Europe has always been on my I want to travel there list for the future. And I've been to a couple places in Europe as well. But I definitely could see myself going back later in life to experience Spain. And I wasn't so sure that I would take that same kind of opportunity to experience a place like Costa Rica, because I didn't really know if I wanted to be hiking and doing a lot of natural things on a vacation. So that was just one of the things that helped me decide, was because I knew that I would probably be going to Spain in the future on a vacation.
I've also taken students to either program in Spain in Salamanca versus in Costa Rica. In Salamanca in Spain, it is a major state university where there's a specific language school for international students. And that program there focuses more on the humanities, political science, current events, history, architecture, art history. Whereas the program in Costa Rica is a small Aquinas-specific program. There are no other universities represented. And you're not in a university setting, you're in a small language school. And the focus is tropicology, ecology, and also has a more community basis to it since you do have a service learning project. In either of those programs, you do live with host families, so you do get an understanding of what family life is like in either of those places, but those are the basic distinctions.
So through going to Costa Rica, you took like classes and courses, but when you got back, what classes and courses did you have to take to attain your major in Spanish?
That really just depends on what classes you've taken before you went to Costa Rica and when you come back. There are the same courses offered for everyone while you're there, and you can take up to 18 credits. All three of us took 18 credits, and it was a little bit different of a workload than it would be here because most of the learning that happens there is all hands-on. So our conversation class, it wasn't a ton of homework because you'd come and have discussions about the politics of Costa Rica or discussions about the family life or things that you would see on the streets during the day. So it was a lot of stuff that you really had to get out of your house during the day and experience the culture because you're there to learn the language and the culture. So a lot of the learning that happened there wasn't exactly classroom learning, I guess would be the best way to describe it. I myself I had taken 301 before I went to Costa Rica, and both of them had already taken 302, the conversation class, and they accommodated all of us very well to make sure that we were in all the classes we should have been in and learning the things that we should have been learning while we were there. And then just depending on how many classes you've taken before you go to Costa Rica, usually it's only about 5 classes, I think, when you get back to complete a major.
What year would you advise traveling? Would be my thing, like credit-wise and trying to still maintain friendships here, but still get a basis in another country.
One thing I would like to interject is that with the Costa Rica program, there's a new requirement that you will be needing to take through 301 before you can go. So if you are in 201, then next semester you'll take 202, and then the fall you'll take 301, and you'll be ready to go in the spring, to give you an example.
Me, for example, I started off a little bit further ahead, so I went to Costa Rica spring of my sophomore year, and I had already taken 301 and 302, and I'm glad that they're kind of making it a requirement to take 301 because I think once you've taken 301, you're at a level where you're going to be just a little bit more able to adapt while you're in Costa Rica, but in that matter, you're going to learn a little bit more because it won't be as much of a struggle. So I would say my recommendation would have been once you get to 301, whether you're a sophomore or a junior, or even Jessica was a senior, or technically, it was her 4th year last year, but then we also had 2 girls who spent their last semester at Aquinas in Costa Rica. So I think, as long as you're ready to do it in terms of, your Spanish ability, then go for it. For friends, your friends are going to be missing you a ton while you're here. They'll be waiting for you at the airport when you get back, so I wouldn't worry too much about having to, maintain contact with them. Skyping with friends was really easy. Skyped with family all the time. Yeah, it was good.
Because I went when I was a senior, I was already planning on coming back a 5th year. So kind of like I'm also suggesting what Zach was suggesting. If you want to graduate in 4 years, probably unless you have everything, all your ducks in a row, you probably don't want to go your senior year like I did. Although it was completely worth it, I'm happy to be here a 5th year for the experience that I got in Costa Rica. But if you want to graduate in 4, it's probably not the best idea to go your senior year.
One thing I would like to interject is that with the Costa Rica program, there's a new requirement that you will be needing to take through 301 before you can go. So if you are in 201, then next semester you'll take 202, and then the fall you'll take 301, and you'll be ready to go in the spring, to give you an example.
Um,
And then just the last little plug I have for this is it really doesn't matter what level you are in school, like Zach said. One thing that I really want to urge you to do, though, especially if Spanish is not a native language for you, is to make sure that you're involved in situations once you get back from Costa Rica to continue speaking. Because I have had friends who've graduated and have taken like a year off because after they got back from Costa Rica, they took the 3 classes that they had left and then were done taking Spanish classes and were working on whatever other specialty they had, and they completely forgot about speaking Spanish. So it's definitely a recommendation of mine to make sure that you continue being in a setting where you can speak Spanish regularly.
Yes, definitely. Once you come back, make sure you take at least 1 Spanish class each semester until you graduate, and hopefully you'll continue to speak after you graduate so that you maintain your ability. One more question?
So you kind of touched on this already, but is it easy to maintain communication with your family and friends back home, like with your phone and stuff like that, I guess?
One thing that I want to urge that all of us can attest to is that you have friends here, obviously, family here, obviously, and it's very, very important to keep in contact with them, but it's also very important to experience the culture. So we all made new friends there because none of us were like super, super connected all the time, 24 hours a day, to the people that were here in the United States. It just kind of makes it a little bit more difficult to disconnect from the United States if you're constantly on your phone texting or Snapchatting or doing whatever you do with your friends that are in the United States versus experiencing what is happening in that moment. But it is very easy to talk to family and friends. Most of us, if not, no, I think there were a couple host families that didn't have internet right in their houses, but those people, the people that lived in those houses, were very easy. It was very easy for them to access the internet. And Skype works perfectly, so that was really easy to be able to talk to family and friends also.
Yeah, that was me who didn't have internet, and it was fine. I just walked, I think, 5 minutes to
My house.
his house, yes, and I could talk to anyone I wanted, and basically anywhere you go, most of the hotels will have internet. So if you really need to talk to someone, there's always going to be an opportunity for you to do that.
And in terms of like emergency contact from your families to you, if there were anything to happen, Don Jorge is in constant contact with families if they need to be in contact with him. And every time you're gone on the weekend, Don Jorge is with you. So Don Jorge and Doña Ana are very, very good about that, making sure that they keep in contact with the families to know if there's anything that needs to be communicated.
Thank you so much for being here, and Pura Vida.
Woo!